Released in 1985, After Hours is one of those movies a lot of people have seen, but don't always realise it was directed by Martin Scorsese. Let's take a look at this quirky classic as it turns 35.
Oh, wow! I don't believe you.
The 80s were an interesting decade for Martin Scorsese. This was a period where his name wasn't necessarily etched in stone as one of the cinematic greats. Now, there's no question. Even though Raging Bull was a major success, it was a precarious time for Scorsese as he struggled to get the green light on his controversial passion project, The Last Temptation of Christ. This short downtime gave us some interesting projects. Though they were director-for-hire jobs, the movies made in this period were almost like great B-sides. Among them we had The King of Comedy, The Colour of Money, and right in between we had After Hours.
Good. Yeah, you got it. Another week, you'll have it down.
It's temporary anyway. I said it's temporary anyway. I do not intend to be stuck doing this for the rest of my life.
After Hours is the story of the neurotic and timid office worker, Paul Hackett, played by Griffin Dunn. He lives a bland existence as a word processor, trapped in a dull office environment with seemingly no great ambitions beyond his day job. As he trains a new colleague, we see him survey his surroundings. He can't see past the work or the office. His workplace is almost like a prison, as the guards close the gates to the building as he narrowly escapes at the end of the day. Paul Hackett is another one of Scorsese's lonely men in the city, much like Travis Bickle or Rupert Pupkin, but his life is turned upside down for an entire night after he meets an alluring young woman called Marcy, played by Rosanna Arquette. What follows is a frantic odyssey into the streets of Soho after dark, as Paul's quest for romance quickly turns into a madcap quest for survival. There's a rule in screenwriting, a technique on how to make your story better and your character more compelling, and that is to make them suffer. This gives your story conflict. The script for After Hours was actually writer Joseph Minion's thesis script while studying screenwriting, and it seems like he took this lesson to heart. The moment Paul leaves his bland apartment and meets Marcy, he's constantly suffering a series of misfortunes. The omens start small, such as a pen not working when he tries to write down Marcy's number, losing cab fare while on the way to Marcy's, something as small as not having a match to light a cigarette, or the subway fare going up when you desperately need to get home.
Fare went up to $1.50 as of midnight.
You're kidding. Well, I've got 97 cents.
No,
It's raining like mad out there.
no,
Would you just give me a break? I really just want to go home.
I'm sorry. I can't do that. I could lose my job.
As we get deeper into the night, Paul's bad luck becomes more grave as he ends up finding Marcy's dead body following an overdose and becomes stuck in Soho with no money and no way to get home. By the end, there's a baying mob looking for Paul as he's suspected of committing a series of burglaries in the neighbourhood. The absurdity of the situations Paul finds himself in are very amusing, the fun of laughing at another's misfortune. But there's more to this tale.
I'll probably get blamed for that.
Paul's misfortune could be seen as some sort of punishment for having sexual desires. It's the promise of sex that pulls him out into the night. As mentioned, Paul is a lonely man, and it seems that the extent of his sex life is reading Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer. It's also the book that entices Marcy to talk to him.
This is not a book, this is a prolonged insult. The gava spit in the face of art. A kick in the pants to truth, beauty, God. Something like that.
That's very good.
No, that's all I remember.
Paul is portrayed as an awkward and uncomfortable character, especially around women. There's a visible unease when Marcy first approaches him, almost a fear of intimacy and a paranoia. The same can be said when he meets Marcy's roommate Kiki for the first time, through his awkward flirtation with her. Here is another scene that demonstrates Paul's bad luck. He thinks he's seduced Kiki with his story, and just as he goes in for the kiss, he realizes she's asleep. Just his luck. The rest of his date with Marcy is equally as confusing for him, with dark confessions and more awkward kisses, and it culminates with Paul losing his temper after smoking a joint and then storming out into the night with the rain beating down on him. Shortly after this, we're shown an image that perfectly captures Paul's fears. He takes refuge from the rain in a dive bar, and in the bathroom, he sees a drawing of a shark biting a man's penis, a very Freudian image that portrays Paul's subconscious fear of castration, or, at the very least, that his libido will lead to some form of misfortune, which is pretty much what we've seen played out so far. It's quite a reflective scene, and Paul stares at himself in the mirror, then laughs off the symbolism. We do, however, see a change of behaviour from Paul from that moment on. He's less interested in fulfilling his sexual needs and more attuned to his survival. He becomes more assertive with the women he encounters. In an earlier scene, Marcy makes reference to The Wizard of Oz as she tells Paul about an ex-lover's obsession with the movie. From the penis shark revelation onwards, Paul becomes a lot more like Dorothy and becomes less interested in getting laid and more interested in getting home.
Oh, thank God he's there. He's there. I can go home. Excuse me.
Oh!
What's the matter?
Oh. Well, nothing. I just... You know, I really got the feeling that you kind of like me now. I mean, you're not going to leave now, not after I brought you in out of the rain, are you?
In After Hours, Scorsese uses the camera like a weapon. This was his first collaboration with cinematographer Michael Bauhaus, and we can see the warm-up for the moves that they would go on to use in Goodfellas that gave the film its visual flair and frenetic pace. In several scenes, we see the camera almost attack Paul as it dollies into him at high speed or stalks him through the streets. It's almost like the camera is hunting him. High angles dwarf him, and low angles create a sense of foreboding as the streets almost swallow Paul up or tower over him. The city is given power and dominance as it controls Paul's destiny. Misfortune lies around every corner. All throughout the film, the camera always seems to be moving, giving us a constant sense of unease, putting us directly into Paul's mindset. The standout shot that comes very early in the film that indicates that danger is coming and marks a big turning point is the threatening way in which Scorsese shoots a set of keys being thrown down to Paul. It's the beginning of his dark night of the soul.
Different rules apply when it gets this late, you know what I mean? It's like after hours.
Thanks, Peter.
Sure, Marcy. Have a good evening.
A recurring visual motif in the film is the use of clocks. Beyond just indicating that everything's taking place after hours, clocks and the sound of the ticking clock creates a sense of panic and urgency that heightens Paul's sense of being trapped. This one shot of a clock in particular is very abrupt and aggressive. The clocks remind Paul of his need to return to his normal routine, back to his job, back to punching the clock, doing the 9 to 5. For Paul, Soho might as well be Oz. His prudish conservative life is not compatible with the alternative lifestyles he experiences downtown.
Roommate was just dipping all day. It put me to work. I feel like a real SoHo artist.
The ending of After Hours is in some ways the most interesting part of the film. Scorsese struggled with various ideas for the ending, as he found the original ending of the script unsatisfactory. The ending they settled on provides us with an interesting interpretation of the film. Paul escapes Soho after being disguised as a papier-mâché statue in order to evade the mob that are hunting him down. He is then stolen by two bungling thieves, and they drive uptown as the sun rises. In a quirk of fate, he falls out of their van right in front of the gates of his office building. Exhausted, dishevelled, and covered in plaster, the gates open, and Paul marches back into work, drops into his seat, and is greeted by his computer. The camera swirls around the office in a mad frenzy, and Paul is no longer in his seat. Perhaps it never happened. Maybe the whole night was just a daydream that he concocted while at work. Maybe Paul dared to dream of a life beyond the office, to escape the monotony of his lonely life, but all he found was a nightmare. So that's my take on After Hours. Thanks for watching the latest episode of Movie Birthdays. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to see more, please hit subscribe. See you next time.